Hello, and Christ is in our midst. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Feast of Transfiguration, which is one of the 12 great feasts in our Orthodox Church's year. Did you ever have it happen to you that something went on in your life, something big, and you really couldn't explain it to yourself? You didn't understand what it was until a long time later. Or maybe you still haven't understood it. Something has happened to you in your childhood and you're not quite sure what to make of it, and you might not until much later in your life. Well, the Feast of Transfiguration is one of those kinds of events that happened to the disciples. In fact, only a few of the disciples. I'll read you the story now, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about it. This comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 17. Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain apart. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with them. And Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is well that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 booths here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He was still speaking when, lo, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were filled with awe. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise and have no fear." And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. And as they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." Well, that's the story that we have in the Gospels, but let me show you 2 of the icons that we have. Here is the icon that we'll have out for the feast, and you can see Jesus in the middle being transfigured, in other words, shining very, very brightly, and on either side you have on his right side, your left side, you have the prophet Elijah, and on the right side, Moses. This symbolizes the law. Moses, the one who traditionally wrote the law, the Old Testament, and then Elijah symbolizing all of the prophets, so the law and the prophets together. In other words, the whole Jewish tradition, this icon is saying, this feast is saying, point toward Jesus. And then you have the disciples, Peter, James, and John, completely bowled over, well, literally bowled over, falling over on the side there, and really not understanding what it is that they are experiencing. And Jesus tells them not to tell anyone about this until after he is risen from the dead, at which point it will become a little clearer to them who he is. So like I said at the very beginning, there are times where even the disciples did not understand who Jesus was or what was happening when they went through experiences like this. And then I'll stand a little further back because we have this wonderful stained glass, a little further back still, wonderful stained glass icon of the Transfiguration. So there you see Jesus transfigured, and on one side you see Moses holding the 10 Commandments, and then on the other side the prophet Elijah, and then Peter, James, and John looking up at this vision that they don't understand at that point. They'll only understand later. One of the reasons, maybe the main reason, that Jesus didn't want them to talk about this event was because he didn't want people to misunderstand. Jesus did not come in glory. He came in weakness, and he was there to help the weak and the poor, and he wasn't there to be a powerful, glorified king, although he is that. But he didn't want people to know that that's what he was about. He was not about that. He was about supporting the weak, the needy, the depressed, the sad, give people life, and not to discourage them. So that's what Jesus is about. And his transfiguration means that all of us who are believers in Jesus have the possibility of also being transfigured, being transformed in our life. Well, I could say a lot more about this, but this at least gives you an idea of why we celebrate this Feast of Transfiguration. One of the special things that happens when it's not COVID, when there's no pandemic, is that we bless fruit on this day as a sign of new life, blessing the fruit, taking it home to eat, and remembering this Feast of Transfiguration. Christ is in our midst.